We met 3 years ago, in the most ordinary way possible, at a mutual friend's birthday party. He wasn't the loudest in the room, nor was he the best looking by traditional standards, but there was something about him that immediately put me at ease. He had this calming energy, the kind that felt like a warm blanket on a cold day. At the time, I had just come out of a chaotic relationship, and Tyler seemed like the kind of guy who wouldn't hurt me. That's what I wanted. Safety. In the beginning, it was everything I thought I needed. He listened, really listened, in a world where everyone else seemed too distracted to care. We'd stay up late talking about everything and nothing. Our childhood dreams, our embarrassing teenage phases, our fears about the future. I'd never felt so seen. Within a few months, I had practically moved into his apartment. We decorated it together, started grocery shopping like a married couple, and adopted a cat named Milo, who loved Tyler more than he loved me. It felt right. Familiar. Like we were building a life. But the cracks began to show slowly, like tiny hairline fractures you only notice once the glass finally shatters. At first, it was small things. He'd forget things I told him. I'd stay late at work, just to avoid going home. We stopped making time for each other. We stopped being curious about each other. It was as if we had both silently agreed to put the relationship on cruise control, expecting it to drive itself. But relationships don't work that way. You have to steer. You have to be present. And we weren't. The arguments were subtle. Passive-aggressive comments, long silences, eye rolls. We stopped trying to fix things. We just let the distance grow, like moss between stones. I started having dreams about being alone in a city, wandering endlessly, unable to find my way home. I'd wake up next to him, my heart racing, and feel nothing but emptiness. One evening, I came home to find him watching TV, the blue light flickering across his face. I sat down next to him and realized we hadn't touched in days. Not a hug, not a kiss, not even a casual brush of hands. I reached for the remote and turned off the TV. "Tyler," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What are we doing?" He looked at me like I had just asked him to solve a math problem. Confused, tired, a little annoyed. "I don't know," he replied. "We're just going through a rough patch." "It's been months," I said. "Maybe even a year." He sighed and looked away. That was the moment I knew. He didn't want to fight for us. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't know how. But I couldn't keep waiting for something to change. I couldn't keep waking up next to someone who made me feel more alone than when I was actually alone. The next morning, I packed a suitcase. Just enough for a few weeks. A couple of pairs of jeans, some t-shirts, my journal, and a hoodie that always made me feel safe. I didn't take much. I didn't want it to feel final, but deep down, I think I knew it was. Tyler watched me pack. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't say much at all. "I need time," I said as I zipped up my suitcase. "Time to heal. Time to figure out who I am again." He nodded. Okay, that was it. No begging, no big speech. Just a quiet, painful understanding that whatever we had was no longer enough. I moved in with my cousin Leah, who lived in our small hometown about 2 hours away. She had a guest bedroom and an open heart. When I arrived, she wrapped me in a hug and said, "You don't have to explain. Just rest." I did. For the first few days, I barely got out of bed. I cried until my eyes were swollen, then stared at the ceiling until morning came. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I felt like a shell of myself, but I also felt relief. A strange, quiet relief that I didn't have to pretend anymore. Leah was a godsend. She brought me tea in the mornings, cooked dinners even when I didn't ask, and never once pushed me to talk. When I finally opened up, it came out in fragments. We stopped trying. I stopped feeling. I forgot who I was. She listened without judgment, which was exactly what I needed. Days turned into weeks. I started going for walks around the neighborhood. The familiar streets of my childhood offered a strange comfort. I passed by the old library, the corner store where we used to buy candy, the park where I had my first kiss. Everything had changed, yet somehow stayed the same. It was grounding. I began journaling again, just a few lines each day. Sometimes they were angry, sometimes sad, sometimes hopeful. I was trying to make sense of the tangled mess inside me. I wanted to believe that this pain had a purpose, that I wasn't just falling apart. I was shedding layers, making room for something new. One afternoon, I sat at the edge of Leah's porch, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, like it was trying to remind me that beauty still existed, that life went on. That's when Leah joined me. "Do you miss him?" she asked gently. I thought about it for a long moment. "I miss the idea of him," I said, "the version of him I fell in love with. But I don't miss feeling invisible. I don't miss being sad all the time." She nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. "That's fair. I didn't know what came next. I didn't have a plan. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to come back to life. And just when I thought I was finally finding my footing, the universe decided to test me. As if healing wasn't messy enough already, I was at the grocery store of all places, wearing sweatpants, hair in a messy bun, grabbing cereal. That's when I saw him. Jaden. A name I hadn't thought about in years. A face I hadn't seen since high school. And yet, there he was, standing in the same aisle, holding a box of instant noodles and a bottle of orange juice. He did a double take. "Is that Zoe?" I froze. "Jaden?" And just like that, my quiet healing journey took a wild, unexpected turn. Healing is never linear. Some days feel like progress, like you're finally climbing out of the emotional pit you fell into. Other days hit like a wave, knocking you back into the cold, uncertain waters of grief. I had been in my hometown for almost a month when it happened. Just as I had begun to settle into the quiet routine of journaling, morning walks, and occasional laughter with Leah, fate reminded me how unpredictable life can be. It was a Saturday afternoon, unremarkable in every way. The kind of afternoon where the sun is just a little too warm and the air smells faintly of fresh-cut grass. I had thrown on a pair of leggings, a hoodie, and tied my hair into a loose bun. The quintessential, I'm not trying to impress anyone outfit. My plan was simple. Grab some almond milk, bananas, and a frozen pizza. Then head back to Leah's to binge some old rom-coms. The grocery store was exactly as I remembered it from my teenage years. Same flickering fluorescent lights, same oddly comforting smell of produce and plastic. As I turned down the cereal aisle, absent-mindedly debating between granola or something more sugary, I nearly crashed my cart into someone else's. "Oh, sorry," I muttered, quickly stepping back. Then I looked up. Time has a funny way of folding in on itself. 1 second, you're 28 and rebuilding your life. The next, you're 17 again, standing in the cereal aisle with your heart pounding like it did back in high school. Because there, in front of me, was Jaden Walker. Jaden. The boy who once snuck me love notes between classes. The boy with the crooked smile and too much charm for someone who barely passed algebra. I hadn't seen him in over a decade, but in an instant, all the memories came flooding back. Stolen glances in the library, the kiss at the homecoming dance, the way he'd make me laugh until I couldn't breathe. He blinked, clearly just as stunned. "Zoe?" My mouth opened, then closed. I gave a half smile. Jaden? Wow, it's been, 10 years? He laughed, that same rich, warm laugh I remembered. At least, you look exactly the same. Maybe even better. I rolled my eyes but felt the flush creep into my cheeks. You still lay it on thick, huh? He shrugged, grinning. Old habits. We stood there for a beat too long, both a little unsure of what to say. Eventually, I nodded at his basket. Instant noodles and orange juice. Balanced diet, I see. He looked down sheepishly. Guilty. I just moved back. Haven't had time to adult properly. Moved back? Really? What brings you here? He hesitated, then said, Long story. Kind of a restart. Figured coming home might help. Clear my head. You? I paused, unsure how much to reveal. But something in his expression made me feel safe. Like I could be honest. Same. Just got out of a long relationship. Needed some space. He nodded, his eyes softening. I'm sorry. That stuff is never easy. No, it's not, I said quietly. Another pause, filled with the hum of the refrigerated aisle. Hey, he said finally. I was just about to grab coffee at Brew and Bean. You want to join me? For old time's sake? I hesitated. A voice in my head reminded me I wasn't ready, that I came here to heal, not reconnect. But another voice, the quieter, lonelier one, pushed back. What harm could one cup of coffee do? Sure, I said. Why not? Brew and Bean had changed. The dusty couches and mismatched furniture had been replaced by sleek wooden tables and Edison bulbs, but the coffee still tasted the same. Strong, slightly, burnt, and oddly comforting. We found a spot by the window. Jaden ordered black coffee, no sugar, and I went for my usual oat milk latte. For a moment we just sat, watching the street outside, sipping our drinks. So, he began, Are you back for good, or just visiting? I shrugged. Depends. I haven't figured it all out yet. Same, he said. I came back to help my mom, actually. She's recovering from hip surgery. Needed someone around. I smiled. That's sweet of you. He leaned back, studying me. You seem different. Not in a bad way, just more serious. I laughed softly. Life will do that to you. He nodded. Yeah, it will. We talked for over an hour. About nothing and everything. Old teachers, classmates, what we thought adulthood would be like, versus what it actually is. With every passing minute, I felt layers of tension peeling away. Jaden still had that easy charm, but there was something more now. Depth, maybe, or just life experience. At one point, he looked down at his coffee, swirling it in thought. You ever think about how different life might have been if we'd kept in touch? I raised an eyebrow. You mean if you hadn't ghosted me after prom? He winced. Ouch. Okay, I deserved that. You did. He grinned sheepishly. I was an idiot. My dad got transferred that summer, and I just panicked. I didn't know how to say goodbye, so I didn't. I sighed. Yeah, it hurt. I know. I'm sorry. And strangely, I believed him. Maybe it was the way he said it, or maybe I had just changed enough to let go of old grudges. Either way, I felt something inside me soften. When we finally parted, ways the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender. He walked me to my car, hands in his pockets, like he wasn't quite ready to say goodbye. It was really good seeing you, Zoe. You too, Jaden. He hesitated. Maybe we could do this again sometime? Catch up more? I looked at him, searching for any sign that this was a bad idea. But all I saw was sincerity. Yeah, I'd like that. Back at Leah's, I collapsed onto the couch, heart still fluttering. She raised an eyebrow. You were gone a while. Did the store run out of pizza or something? I laughed, tossing my bag onto the table. You won't believe who I ran into. When I told her about Jaden, her eyes widened. Jaden Walker? As in, your high school almost boyfriend? The very one, she grinned. Well. The plot thickens. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop smiling. Something about today had shifted. Maybe it was closure. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. Whatever it was, I felt alive. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the randomness of it all, of all the grocery stores, of all the days. Why today? Why now? Maybe the universe wasn't trying to punish me. Maybe it was nudging me, reminding me that healing doesn't always mean isolation. Sometimes it means letting someone in, even if just a little. I wasn't ready for love. Not yet. But maybe I was ready to feel again. And that was something. The days that followed my unexpected reunion with Jaden passed in a strange blend of clarity and confusion. On one hand, I was slowly reclaiming pieces of myself, like fragments I hadn't realized I'd lost. On the other, I felt like I was being drawn into something unexpected, unplanned, and deeply tempting. Jaden and I had started meeting up, first for coffee, then for walks through town, and once even to help him paint the spare bedroom at his mom's house. Each moment was easy, filled with laughter, shared memories, and the kind of understanding that can only be built over years of absence and a touch of teenage nostalgia. But there was something else building, something unspoken yet undeniable. A glance that lasted too long, a brush of hands as we reached for the same paintbrush, a look that said, I remember what we had, and I want to remember it again. I kept telling myself that this was just friendship, that I wasn't ready, that Jaden was a blast from the past, not a part of my future. But one night, one moment, was all it took to blur those lines entirely. It was a Saturday, late September, and the air had the crisp bite of fall. Leah had gone out with her boyfriend for the weekend, so I had the house to myself. I was curled, up on the couch in sweatpants, wrapped in a blanket with a half-eaten pint of cookie dough ice cream and a cheesy romantic comedy playing in the background. Jaden texted around 9:30. Jaden, you up? Me, barely. Watching a movie. Why? Jaden, I just finished helping Mom with some stuff. Can I stop by? I grabbed your favorite donuts from Tony's. Me, seriously? At 9:30? Jaden, midnight snack tradition. Don't leave me hanging. I hesitated. My hair was a mess. I hadn't put on real clothes in hours. And emotionally, I felt like I was walking a tightrope. But I typed, me. Doors unlocked. 15 minutes later, he walked in carrying a pink box and 2 coffee cups. He wore a gray hoodie and jeans, his hair still slightly damp like he'd just showered. He looked good. Too good. Brought peace offerings, he said, holding up the donuts. Maple glaze, jelly-filled, and one of those weird lemon things you like. I laughed, taking the box from him and heading to the kitchen. You mean the best donuts in existence? We sat down on the couch. The rom-com was still playing, now near the end where the grand romantic gesture was about to unfold. Jaden glanced at it and smirked. Still love these? Unapologetically, I said. He nodded. Good. We all need something soft in our lives. There was silence for a few minutes as we nibbled on donuts, sipping lukewarm coffee. Then he turned to me, his tone quieter. Can I ask you something personal? I set my donut down. Sure. What really happened with Tyler? I looked at him. He wasn't prying. His eyes were gentle, curious, not judgmental. It just ended, I said slowly. It had been ending for a while. We were going through the motions. I felt like I was drowning in a life that wasn't mine anymore. So I left. I needed to remember who I was. He nodded, then looked down. I get that. I was engaged, a few years ago. My eyes widened. What? Seriously? Yeah. Didn't last. She wanted things I wasn't ready to give, or maybe I didn't want them with her. Either way, it fell apart. We both sat there, letting the quiet settle around us. Then he turned to face me fully. I'm glad we reconnected, Zoe. I didn't expect it to feel this natural. Neither, did I? I didn't respond. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. The boy I'd once crushed on so hard it hurt. The man he'd become. The comfort I felt around him. The ache in my chest when I thought about leaving this moment. Then he reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear, and I didn't stop him. His hand lingered against my cheek, and our eyes locked. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Jaden, I whispered. But before I could finish whatever thought I had, he leaned in and kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant, like he was asking permission. I gave it. The kiss deepened, turning into something more intense, more needy. I wrapped my arms around his neck, and he pulled me closer. Years of emotion, of questions, of what-ifs, came crashing to the surface. Every touch, every kiss, felt like an answer. We ended up in my bedroom. Clothes were discarded in a trail from the hallway to the bed. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the past. Not the future. Just the heat of his skin. The way his hands knew exactly where to go. The sound of our breaths tangled in the dark. One night. One decision. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight filtering through the curtains, Jaden was still asleep beside me. His arm draped across my waist, his face peaceful. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a kiss. This wasn't just a night. Something had shifted, and there would be consequences. Mornings used to be my favorite time. The quiet, the warmth of sunlight stretching across the floor, the promise of a new day. But on this particular morning, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling with Jaden's arm draped lazily over my waist, everything felt different, and not in the dreamy butterflies in my stomach way. It felt heavy, real. His breathing was slow, steady, completely unaware of the storm that had begun to churn inside me. I gently moved his arm and slipped out of bed, pulling on my robe. The cool wood floor sent a shiver through my body, but it was nothing compared to the internal chill creeping into my thoughts. I walked to the bathroom, avoiding my reflection as I closed the door behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just sat there, staring at nothing, until my eyes finally landed on the small drawer beneath the sink, the one where I kept things I thought I'd never need again. I pulled it open, my fingers trembling slightly as I reached inside. There it was. A single, unopened pregnancy test, a leftover relic from the Tyler days, back when we were still trying to figure out if we had a future. Back when I was still afraid of what the future might bring. I almost laughed. If this were a scene in one of my favorite rom-coms, this would be the part where I say something quirky to the mirror or play a dramatic montage over soft piano music. But this wasn't a movie. This was my life, and I was late. Really late. I had blamed the stress, the move, the emotional chaos, my irregular cycle. But deep down, I had known. Something felt off. My body felt different. My appetite had changed. Smells bothered me. My chest felt sore. All the signs were there. I just hadn't let myself see them. Until now. I opened the test with the kind of quiet urgency that only fear can fuel. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure Jaden could hear it from the bedroom. I followed the instructions automatically, like muscle memory, then placed the test on the sink and walked away. 2 minutes, the longest 120 seconds of my life. I tried to distract myself by brushing my teeth, then changed my mind and rinsed with mouthwash instead. I considered going back into the bedroom, curling up next to Jaden, pretending everything was okay. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I knew. When the time passed, I turned back to the test. 2 lines. Clear. Bold, unmistakable, positive. I sank to the floor, not because I was sad, not because I was angry, but because in that single moment, my entire world shifted. Again. The bathroom tiles were cold beneath my legs, grounding me as 1,000 thoughts crashed through my mind. I stared at the test on the counter, its 2 bold pink lines staring right, back at me like an undeniable truth I wasn't ready to face. Pregnant. The word echoed in my head, each repetition heavier than the last. It wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a scream. I pulled my knees to my chest, trying to make myself smaller, as if I could disappear into the tile grout and erase the last 12 hours, the last 3 weeks, the last one night. I didn't know how long I sat there. The early morning sunlight grew stronger, casting lines across the floor, but the warmth didn't reach me. I was frozen, mentally rewinding every moment with Jaden, every kiss, every laugh, every decision that led to this one. I had no one to blame. Not him, not Tyler, just me. It had been my choice to open the door. My choice to let things happen. My choice to believe, even just for one night, that I could live without consequences. A soft knock on the bathroom door startled me. Zoe? Jaden's voice was groggy, concerned. You okay? I scrambled up, flushed the toilet for effect, and splashed cold water on my face. Yeah, I called out, too brightly. Just morning stuff. There was a pause. Then, want me to make coffee? Sure, I said, gripping the sink edge like it could hold my entire life together. When I stepped back into the bedroom, Jaden was pulling on his hoodie, barefoot and sleepy-eyed but still achingly handsome. He smiled when he saw me, and it almost broke me. Sleep okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, you? Best in weeks. He leaned in and kissed my forehead, then padded off to the kitchen. I stood there a moment longer, hugging my arms around myself, feeling like an imposter in my own life. I didn't tell him. Not that morning. Not when we sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee. Not when he kissed me goodbye and said he'd call me later. I smiled, nodded, and watched him walk down the driveway, all the while pressing my hand gently against my stomach. That afternoon, I sat on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket with my knees pulled up and the pregnancy test hidden in my sweater pocket. I hadn't called anyone. Not Leah. Not my mom. No one. I wasn't ready for the world to know what I barely understood myself, but silence was suffocating. I needed one person, just one, to say something that would make it all feel less terrifying. So I texted Leah. Me. You home tonight? Leah. Yeah. What's up, me? I need to talk, just us. Leah. I'll grab wine. You okay? Me. Not sure. Leah walked in like she always did, without knocking, humming some off-key pop song, her arms full of groceries and wine. Her presence was loud, warm, and familiar, a contrast to the silent hurricane spinning inside me. She dropped a canvas tote on the kitchen counter and pulled out a bottle of Merlot. "I brought the good stuff," she said with a grin, kicking off her shoes. "Also, cheese and chocolate, because we don't half-ass crisis mode in this house." I tried to smile, but it came out twisted. She glanced up, her teasing tone faltering. "Whoa. Okay. That's your, I might be dying or murdered someone. Face. Sit. Talk. Now." I sat at the table, fingers threading and unthreading themselves in my lap. Leah poured 2 glasses, then slid into the chair across from me. Her brows drew together as she studied me. "Zoe, what happened?" I couldn't speak yet. I reached into my hoodie pocket and slowly placed the pregnancy test on the table, face up. She stared at it. 1 second. 2. And then, her eyes widened. Is this what I think it is?" I nodded. Holy shit. Silence stretched between us, taut and electric. She didn't gasp or freak out. She just blinked and leaned back, staring at the 2 pink lines like they were an alien message. After a long pause, she said quietly, "Is it Tyler's?" I shook my head, biting my bottom, lip so hard it nearly bled. Her jaw dropped slightly. Oh, it's Jaden's." I nodded again, the tears finally spilling over, hot and unstoppable. Leah was up in an instant, wrapping her arms around me so tightly I thought I might shatter. She didn't say, "How could this happen?" or "What were you thinking?" She just held me, and that was exactly what I needed. We stayed like that for a while. No wine, no chocolate, just silence and breathing, and the steady thrum of my panic trying to quiet under the comfort of someone who knew me better than anyone. Eventually, she pulled away and gently wiped my cheek with her sleeve. "Okay," she said. "Let's break this down." I laughed bitterly. "You sound like a lawyer." "Well, I am a paralegal. It's what I do. Step 1, you're pregnant. That's a fact. Step 2, you're not alone. That's another fact. Step 3, what do you want to do, Zoe?" I stared at the test again, my mind churning. "I don't know. I really, truly don't know." She nodded like she understood, which she did, maybe more than anyone else could. "Do you want to tell Jaden?" I flinched. "Eventually, maybe, but not yet. He's just now becoming part of my life again. This would change everything." "Yeah, it would. But I also don't want to hide it from him." Leah took a sip of wine and looked at me over the rim. "So maybe you just take a breath, one thing at a time. You don't have to make every decision today." I sighed. "I feel like I already did. That night." Leah raised her eyebrows. "You mean the night you had consensual, emotionally complicated sex with someone you care about? You're not a villain, Zoe. You're human." But I told myself I was healing, that I wasn't ready. I literally said I needed space. And now I pointed at the test again. "This." She reached over and took my hand. "Healing doesn't mean you won't make messy choices. Sometimes it just means you're finally feeling enough to even make them." Her words landed deep. I didn't know if they were comforting or terrifying. Probably both. "Have you decided what you want to do?" she asked gently. "I mean, with the pregnancy?" I closed my eyes. I haven't even processed the fact that it's real yet. Part of me still thinks I'm going to wake up tomorrow and laugh about this dream. Leah squeezed my hand. "Well, if it's a dream, I'm here with snacks and sarcasm. If it's real, I'm still here. Either way, you're not alone." I nodded, the tears still silently falling. I wasn't ready for a baby, but I also wasn't ready to decide what to do about not being ready. That night, after Leah went to bed and the house was quiet, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror again. The test still sat on the edge of the sink like a tiny plastic harbinger of everything that was about to change. I stared at my reflection, at the dark circles under my eyes, the paleness in my face, the small tremor in my fingers. I didn't look like someone who had their life together. I looked like someone unraveling. And yet, deep beneath the fear and uncertainty, a quiet voice whispered, "You are still you." The thought stopped me. I was still Zoe, still the girl who left a long-term relationship because she knew she deserved better. Still the woman trying to rebuild a life with intention, even if it was messy and unpredictable. The pregnancy didn't erase that. The next morning, I went for a long walk. The air was cool, damp with early dew, and the streets of our little neighborhood were quiet. As I wandered past the old elementary school, the park where I used to swing as a kid, and the tiny corner bookstore with its window still filled with handwritten recommendations, I started breathing easier. This town was a strange sort of safety net. It held my history in its cracked sidewalks and familiar trees. I ended up sitting on the swings, pushing myself slowly back and forth like I used to after bad days in middle school. I let the motion lull me, eyes focused on the shifting clouds above. And then, almost out of nowhere, a new thought came. What if I could do this? Not because I had to, not because I was obligated to, but because, just maybe, there was a version of my life where this unexpected detour led to something not terrible, not tragic, just different. I didn't know what that looked like yet. I couldn't see as far as baby showers or car seats or midnight feedings, but I could see something. A flicker, a possibility. The swing creaked beneath me as I slowed to a stop. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, thumb hovering over Jaden's name in my messages. My stomach flipped. I didn't text him. Not yet. Instead, I sent a message to my OB/GYN's office from high school, Dr. Hartley. I didn't even know if she still practiced, but I needed to feel like I was doing something. Even a confirmation appointment felt like taking a step forward instead of drowning in indecision. When I got back to the house, Leah was in the kitchen making pancakes, her hair piled messily on her head, flipping batter onto a griddle with a focus that made me smile. "Hey," she said, without turning. "You look better." I took a walk. She flipped a pancake. "That's code for, I had a mental breakthrough and cried under a tree, isn't it?" I laughed. "Basically." She glanced over her shoulder and grinned. "Want to talk about it?" I slid onto a stool at the counter. "I think I want to keep it." Her hand froze mid-flip. I continued before I lost my nerve. "I don't know how. I don't know what it'll look like. But something about this doesn't feel like the end of the world anymore. It feels like a door I didn't expect to open." Leah turned the stove off and leaned on the counter, looking at me with quiet awe. "Zoe, that's big. Are you sure?" "No, but I'm not as scared as I was yesterday. That has to count for something." She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "It counts for a lot." We ate pancakes together in silence, the kind of silence only people who truly know each other can sit in comfortably. It was warm, steady, and exactly what I needed. But the truth still waited. Jaden didn't know. And as much as I wanted to live in this little bubble of clarity, I knew it wouldn't last forever. I had to tell him. It took me 3 more days to work up the courage to call him. 3 long days of second-guessing every sentence I might say, playing out every version of his reaction in my head. Anger, disbelief, fear, silence. But the truth kept pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't ignore. It wasn't fair to him, and it certainly wasn't fair to me, to keep pretending like life hadn't changed. So I did it on a Wednesday evening. I didn't text him or try to ease into it. I called. When he answered, his voice was soft, warm. "Hey, Zoe. Everything okay?" My mouth went dry. "Can you come over?" I asked. "I need to talk to you. It's important." He was at my doorstep in less than 20 minutes, wearing that same gray hoodie from the night that changed everything. I let him in and led him to the couch where it all began. He sat beside me, his face lined with concern. "You're scaring me. What's going on?" I didn't speak. I reached into my pocket and placed the pregnancy test in his palm. The moment felt slow and fast all at once. His eyes dropped to the 2 pink lines, and his entire expression shifted. From confusion to shock to a silence so thick I thought I might drown in it. Are you? His voice cracked on the last word. I nodded, swallowing hard. "It's yours." He stared at the test for a long moment, like it might rearrange itself if he looked long enough. Then he stood up and paced, running, a hand through his hair, letting out a sharp breath. Okay. Wow. Okay. I waited. I didn't try to fill the space. He needed a moment, and I owed him that. Finally, he stopped pacing and looked at me. Are you okay?" That was the question that undid me. I nodded, but the tears were already falling. "I think so. I'm still processing. I wasn't going to tell you right away, but I couldn't keep it from you." Jaden crossed the room and sat back down beside me, his eyes searching mine. "And what do you want to do?" I met his gaze. "I think I want to keep it." He was quiet. I watched every emotion flicker across his face, shock, fear, maybe even panic. But then something softer settled in his expression. A strange calm. He took my hand. "Okay, then we'll figure it out. Together." I wasn't expecting those words. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until that moment. I let it out slowly, feeling the tension in my chest begin to ease. "You mean it?" I whispered. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "But yeah, I mean it." We sat there, not as 2 people with a flawless plan, but as 2 broken, scared, hopeful souls trying to make sense of an unexpected future. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And sometimes, that's enough to take the next step. If this story moved you, made you cry, or kept you turning the page, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow for the next chapter. Because Zoe's journey is far from over, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.